So dramatic, huh?
Very much so. I love it. It's wonderful music. I like it. I dig it.
Gotta
Well, good
love
morning, good sir.
dev stock videos. Good morning to you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well.
Yeah.
My back is doing so much better now.
Oh, yeah. Almost the opposite for me. I don't know. It's like any part where I had back trouble is real fired up right now because I push the snow blower, 3 inches forward, pull it 6 inches back, and do that for what felt like a mile.
Did you get how long is your driveway?
It's
Too long. Got it. Okay.
it's well over 100 feet.
Oof.
Yeah, and we had some pretty good drifts, like 3-foot drifts. You got to just kind of shave off the top, and yeah, it was something else. We even did the first batch, went through and did it. Then the night, then the next day of snow came, and it's like you would never know that we were out there. So it's like, yeah, but it's cool. It's melting. Well, I mean, it's snowing right now.
Yeah, it's snowing over here. We got about 2 feet in the high end ones, in the taller drifts.
Really?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Wow, it's fun. Good old Colorado.
Yeah.
What do you notice? My background's a little different.
I did notice your background is a little different.
Yeah, I had to. I rotated my desk. I put my tower in timeout because it's just making a little too much noise. So I'm next to my closet now. So I snuck the tower into the closet and have the cords running in there for recording.
So are we looking at the current weather behind you? Is that what that little display is?
That is actually a binary clock.
Oh.
So it tells you the time in binary.
Nerd.
Exactly. Like exclamation point nerd.
I've got nothing on that one.
Yeah. That's probably my favorite response to that.
There you go.
It's no fun when people are like, I know what that is. It's like, what is that? And then it's like, you're so. Yeah.
You would.
Yeah, exactly. Haha, I could tell time and you can't.
Awesome.
Cool, man. So the world of 3D.
This is just the tip of the iceberg. Yeah. We're gonna go play in some really cool stuff, and we're gonna explore some really interesting stuff. Give or take time. See how long it takes for me to sculpt up what I want to sculpt up, but also kind of explain what we're doing in here. Yeah, we're gonna do some fun things today. This is something I've kind of been waiting for. I really enjoy Unreal, but we're gonna kind of get something into Unreal. Like, how do you get something into this actual program? And Unreal actually has some pretty amazing sculpting and modeling tools in it, but there's nothing quite like ZBrush. There's just nothing. As Blender's amazing too. A little bit I've been playing with that. I've been super impressed with it. So we're gonna do a free version so you all can follow along.
Oh, nice.
Make this happen.
Yeah, we should cue the romance music whenever you're talking about ZBrush.
It's so good.
We need some saxophone in the background while you're talking about ZBrush. I'll work on that for the next one. I'm sure there'll be another. All right, cool. So let's get into it. So if you're watching, make sure if you're watching recordings, you can post in the comments. We'll try to catch up with those and answer questions. Love to hear your feedback on what you're liking about it, what you'd like to see. And don't forget to do all your likes and subscribes and follows and ring in the bell. All right. So, Mr. Gatlin, it's to you.
Let's do this thing. All right. So we're going to use the free version as mentioned before. So this is ZBrush Core Mini. This is the website. Let me actually drop this into chat for y'all. You can download this and play with it. This is absolutely a fantastic program. It's just a lot of fun. One of the things that I really like about the ZBrush Core Mini, so yay, download for free, right? Register. So you got to register, you got to log in, the whole thing. The thing that I like about it is that it's very accessible. I know a lot of people kind of complain about the UI, but I'll be completely honest, you can change the UI however you want. So whatever, you can't fight it, right? Now, if you're a little bit, like maybe I don't actually want to do this, you can do this instead. So if you search for Sculpt GL on your YouTubes, it's always this first one that pops up. At least it is for me, because I look for this all the time. And I'm going to drop this website actually in here too. And this is a sculpting program that runs directly in the browser. So you can just kind of do whatever it is that you want to do inside of here, and you can 3D print all this stuff out. There's a whole list of export as OBJ, PLY, STLs, send it out to Sketchfab. You know, like this is amazing. That this exists inside, you know, a browser. You can play with topology over here. You can change the way it actually renders over here. You've actually got all the sculpting brushes right here too. This is a lot of fun, and it does actually navigate like ZBrush. So if you're like, well, how does this actually work? So let's talk about this really quick, because this will be important should you need to know how to actually get this to work. So if you hold down the Alt key on the keyboard and you left mouse click and drag, or right mouse click and drag, you can actually pan. Now, if you just click and drag inside the viewport, you can actually toggle tumble around. If you click and drag on the surface, that's when it actually starts to sculpt. Okay. You can also, if you hold Alt and then you start to pan, you let go of it, and then you can actually zoom in and out. And I think you can use, you can use the scroll wheel on your mouse too. So I use a tablet because I'm old and I've got carpal tunnel. So there's the thing. If you want to actually carve in, just hold down the Alt key on the keyboard and you can actually carve in. If you hold down Shift, you can actually kind of, is it going to do it for me? There we go. If you hold down Shift, you can actually smooth out the surface, which is kind of cool too. So very, very accessible. All this stuff you can send off to other programs. You can 3D print it, send it out to Sketchfab. Like it's insanity what you're able to do inside of this program. And it's very similar, like I said, to ZBrush. So I think it's a great way to kind of get up and running completely and totally for free, which is super, super cool. Okay, so 1 and 2. Let's go to 3, right? So let's go and close that down. So I'm going to go ahead and open up ZBrush Core Mini. We'll get into ZBrush eventually, I promise you, just not today. So when it pops up, you will get this little awesome thing that says, hey, by the way, the latest version is up. There are some really, really amazing things that ZBrush also has. There's ZBrush Core. Check this out. It's a like ZBrush 0.5 version. It doesn't have everything in it, but it's considerably less expensive, and it's awesome. The other thing that's really cool about this program and this company is that if you get ZBrush Core, when you upgrade to the actual ZBrush, the price that you paid for Core is included. So you're like, oh, it's like $400, and then the main one's like $800. I think it's $900. That first $400 actually goes toward the next higher version. Like they're like, cool, yeah, you can upgrade, at a discount. So absolutely, totally check it out. And then there's always something live going on. Paul and Scott seem to be the one that they're going to do right now. Paul is amazing. I've taken classes under him. He is a trip to actually watch. He is so amazing at this program. It's super cool. He's the guy that goes, if there's something that goes into ZBrush, he tests it for like a year before it actually pops out. So he's really tight-lipped about it, which is kind of fun. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about ZBrush Core. What's going on up here in the top left-hand corner up here? These are the actual different brushes that you've got up here at the top. So standard brush, clay brush. The clay brush is my favorite. There's the inflate brush. There's a pinch brush. This is great for getting really nice creases. Inflate's great for, well, inflating balloons, right? There's a move brush and a snake hook brush, and they work similar, but I'm going to show you the difference between them here in a minute. The slash brush, it's basically the opposite of pinch. It'll cut in. And then there's this hard H polish brush. So the H stands for hard. So if you want to do somewhat kind of hard surface stuff while you're sculpting, you can do that. Other things to kind of be aware of. There are some materials down here. They're just for show, really. If you click on any of them, you will then get a different material on the surface. I'm going to stick with this matte cap just because it shows, or this basic one, because it'll show the surface while I'm sculpting really nicely, and I don't get confused on what's actually going on. This red wax is something that's been in ZBrush for many, many years. It is very nice. It's very pretty. The reason I don't typically use it is because it's got a little bit of like fake subsurface scattering. It's like wax, like the light goes in, bounces around, and then comes out of the surface. So just be aware that that's there. Over here on the right, let's kind of talk about some of these. You can turn perspective on and off. We're not going to see much of a difference right now. If I do turn the floor on though, and hopefully this is coming through, you should be able to see a grid. Now, if you turn the perspective off, you'll notice it goes into isometric view. So this can be really helpful when you're working on things that need to be symmetrical, like faces. It can be really helpful. I'm going to go ahead and leave it on for now. It's not really going to hurt it at all. You've got an X, Y, and Z up here. Now, if you're used to programs like Blender and Maya, you may want to leave this Y toggled on up here. Why, you ask? And the reason is because it'll kind of keep everything straight up and down. Now, if you're used to ZBrush and you want to jump into this program, that's fine. That's great. It's free. ZBrush uses X, Y, and Z, and there's no up. So it'll totally like just turn, and you can get everything upside down real easy by accident. Should you do that, there's a little face up here in the corner with a little green, red, and blue. Hit the little blue one so the face is facing directly at you, and hit Y, and that will reset the camera so it's nice and quote unquote normal, as it were. So there's that. At any time, if you end up pushing something off screen, there's a frame button, whoops, right here. You can hit F on the keyboard, and that will just frame it right where you want it. So you can also use your move as buttons right here on the right, and you can zoom in and out, and you can also rotate. So you can do that. I'm going to use Alt and right mouse, Alt, let go of right mouse, and just left mouse to kind of rotate around, just to kind of navigate. There are also colors over here. Should you want to use them, that's fine. That's totally cool. I don't typically use them too much. And there are two options up here at the very top that actually go from start with a sphere or start with a cube. So, hey, something's changed. You want to save? I'm going to say no, I don't need to save. This cube is a little bit different. Okay. And this is actually kind of cool because it's a precursor to what we're going to talk about inside of Unreal. So if I sculpt on this, and let's change my brush size up here at the top, you will notice that this texture just constantly stays on this. So what it's doing is it's projecting this crazy texture on here through this world space. There's no actual UVs going on this right now. In fact, this is a total mess of geometry. I can guarantee it. So no matter how much you carve on this, so I'm holding Alt, or how much you sculpt, I can just click and drag on the surface. That texture will always be there. You cannot get rid of it. Sorry, that's the thing. So I'm going to go back to the sphere real quick. So do I want to save? Nope, that's fine. You'll notice that this one does not have that. So I should bring the floor back here too. Okay, three last little things. Up here at the top, we have a draw size. You can also, if you tap the S key or hold the S key, you can click and drag, and then you can change your draw size. And then we have an intensity, and this is how much. So if I start to sculpt on this, if I turn this way down and sculpt on it, you see it doesn't do nearly as much. So this is the intensity of it too. You can press the U key or hold the U key on there. Okay. And then thing number 3, we've got this low, medium, and high. So let's talk about what's going on inside of ZBrush Core Mini. When your brush is purple, okay, when it's purple, what's actually happening? So I'm going to Control Z, undo, and I'm going to turn on my, here it is, polyframe, so I can actually see the wireframe on here. So this is what's really cool about this program. It'll make geometry on the fly for you, which is super cool. As long as your cursor is purple, if you click and drag on the surface, you'll notice it'll like tessellate the surface, and it'll just continue to add geometry. Okay, it's adding more clay, it's adding more polygons. It just does it on the fly, depending on how big your brush is. So I'm going to hold S, make my brush really small. Let's zoom in here, get real close, right? You'll notice that it's dependent on the size of the brush. So if you want to put like pores and like eyelashes and like wrinkles, make your brush smaller, and it just does it for you. So you don't have to worry about it. Now, as mentioned, this only does it when your brush is purple. And this is where it's going to undo a few times and make my brush a little larger here. So if I change over to my snake hook brush, this one does it, and I can click and drag. This is like the coolest brush ever, by the way. This thing is just so much fun. And it's basically moving the geometry. It's really more of a pull, okay? But it's purple. Remember, this one's purple, right? So if I use the move brush, you'll notice that my cursor is red. And the reason it's red is because there's a function inside of here that's kind of toggled on and off depending on the brush you have. And when it's toggled on, it's purple. It's called Sculptress Pro. So what it's doing is it's adding that geometry on the fly. It's sculpting new geometry. But with this brush, it doesn't do that. And it just kind of moves the geometry around. Okay. So that's not necessarily helpful for right now, but it definitely illustrates the point that when your cursor is red, you're going to get a different effect than when it's actually purple. And most of these are actually purple. I think it's just, oh, no, the inflate brush isn't. So this one won't actually add geometry. So there's that. Okay. Now let's go back to the snake hook brush. When I hold down the shift key with the snake hook brush, you notice, actually I think with all the brushes, it turns yellow. And this is because it will also kind of add geometry on the fly. although it's not doing it right now. Let's get rid of that. All right, well, whatever. Yeah, it's doing it. Okay, as it shrinks it, you can see that it's actually changing the topology while it's on there. Boop, and it goes away.
I could see why you love this program so much. That's
It's
so
such
cool.
a trip. I love it. It's so good, right? Okay, so that's what's going on there. Now, if I go to the move tool and hold shift, you'll notice that it still actually turns that yellow color. It's just turned on. So what I'm doing while holding shift is it's actually switching the brush that I'm using to the smooth brush. So I can click and drag on the surface. It'll smooth out the surface. Now, what we're going to do today, now we've kind of got this set up, is I want to build an actual sandcastle. So if we go over here real quick, spoiler alert. So I want to build something that looks a little bit like this castle right here. And let's just zoom in on this. This was all built inside of Sculptors Pro, the sandcastle, not the background. For those of you that are joining us today, previous videos we were making the background. Okay, and I want to be able to drop it into Unreal. Now, this object doesn't have UVs on it, but because we were kind of talking about some previous videos, we were talking about procedural maps and getting the stuff to look the way we want it to look without actually having to use UVs. We're going to kind of continue that on. So jump back over here into ZBrush. So what I want to do is I want to use the grid. So this grid, it's really light. Sorry, I can't change it in here. We're going to use that as the base size for our sandcastle or snow castle, depending on the weather that you're working with currently. Let's go ahead and use my snake hook brush and make our brush really big. And I'm going to click on this guy's head. And I can also kind of rotate the camera with this as well. So I just want it to look directly from above. There we go. And I'm just going to start grabbing this and I'm just going to start pulling this out. Something that is also turned on by default is symmetry. So as I work on one side, the computer will work on the other. That button exists right here. So that's currently on. So we have a nice base for this. Let's shift and kind of smooth this out. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is made of sand after all. This is why this program works really well for this. I'm going to rotate and kind of look here so I can see that I've got a lot going on below. I'm just going to just kind of pull these down. And rotate the camera. I'll pull these ones down as well. Something that's nice about this sculpting stuff in sand is that it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so I've got an area that's kind of indented below here. So here's a kind of a cool function that exists with the snake hook and the move brush. When you hold Alt, it gives you an alternate function. So if I hold Alt and click and drag, it'll actually pull it. Oh, this one won't do it. We're going to have to do it with the move. It'll pull along the normals. So it'll just pull it straight down, as opposed to having to get the camera just right and pulling it from the side. Okay. So if I'm up here, I can hold Alt, and if I push to the left, it'll push it down in, and if I pull to the right, it'll pull it up off the surface. So you can kind of control it this way. Just smooth this down a little bit. Okay, so now I have my base. Whoa. Okay, this is why I use XYZ, because you can get locked like that, and it drives me crazy. Okay, so we have this. So let's put our the 4 pillars on either side and then kind of a wall in between them. I'm going to use the snake hook brush for this. Make my brush a little bit smaller. And while I'm looking at this from the side, I'm just going to click and drag straight up. Yay, now I got pillars, right? Well, they're a little bit skinny. That's fine. We can use our inflate brush to actually make this a little bit bigger. And let's actually make our brush pretty good sized here too. And if I just kind of click across this, you can see it just kind of inflates them. And there we go. So now we're starting to get our pillars. If I hold down shift and kind of smooth it, it'll kind of rearrange that topology a little bit. There we go there. So let's kind of just repeat that. Let's get used to these tools. So snake hook, I'm just going to pull straight up and go back into my inflate. Just kind of inflate these up here a little bit. And I can use my move brush to kind of push these around. I could use the snake hook brush as well, although I'm not looking to add more topology across the surface. So there we go. So that works pretty well. Feeling pretty good about that. Push and pull. So if I push and pull from either side, I can slowly make this thing a little bit larger. Let's go to this side. Here we go. Like so. All right, so next I want to put the tops on these. So let's use the standard brush. Let's kind of play with this and see how this one works. So just like before, it will kind of add to the topology across here. Now I'm going to turn off my wireframe. And what I'm looking to do is build kind of a rim along the top. And this one works pretty well. I'm just going to have to keep turning the camera left and right until I get around my object here. And smooth that down a little bit. They look like mushroom tops right now. Mushrooms in the sand. Do that again over here. Round, round, come around, like so. Kind of smooth around the top. Kind of draw that up there. There we go. So I'm looking for just kind of a general shape for right now. I don't need anything perfect. This is way too early in the process to worry about perfect. It's just never going to happen anyways. All right, so let's look at it from the top. Let's actually use our move brush, and let's just kind of make these a bit more circular. Like so. Smooth it out just a little bit. Perfect. So one of the things that's awesome about this guy up here is we know which direction is forward at all times. Yay, because there's not a lot going on screen to really kind of tell us that. There is a little gizmo right in the center of the world, which does help. But if you don't actually have the floor on, you can't actually see it and it goes away. So this little guy up here is really helpful for that. All right, let's carve in underneath these so that they look a little bit better. Let's try using the slash brush. I don't think this is going to work really well, but it might. Oh, it's working actually pretty nice. Okay, cool. Just kind of carve in here. I was going to say, if not, the standard brush would totally do what we needed it to do. So you may notice that it's hard for me to get to that other pillar over there. So this is one of the limitations of this version of ZBrush. I'm just going to smooth some of this out to kind of bring it back out. Because I can't hide certain parts of the geometry, which is kind of a bummer deal. So I'm doing something here that you can't see, unfortunately. So as I'm holding down Shift, I can move across here. You notice it shrinks it. So I'm going to let go of Shift, okay? And now as I move, it kind of inflates it a little bit. So you can kind of use it as an inflate tool too. So there's that. Let's carve a little bit up here. There we go. How does that look like sand would actually hold like that? Gravity would totally pull it down off there. Move, and let's give ourselves a little bit more pointy tops here. All right, so now we've got this abomination. I feel like I'm building a world for the Smurfs. Those of us that remember the Smurfs. All right, let's go ahead and use the clay brush. This is my favorite brush of all time. Okay, that weighs forward. Okay, cool. So I want to build, this is just like adding clay. I love it. I want to build kind of a wall right here. And I can carve in a little bit. So we've got kind of a courtyard in the center. And we'll just kind of carve this up here too, just over and over and over and over and over. Carve that back a little bit. Carve this one back a little bit. Build the back wall as well.
It's so cool how rough it looks, you know, like you're not doing these perfect strokes because you're probably going to smooth it out later. So it's good to know that you could take a rough pass.
Yeah, yeah. And I've seen some absolutely amazing pieces come out of this program. Just this one, not even just regular, like ZBrush, just phenomenal stuff that comes out of there. Then just really, really beautiful pieces come out of this program too. Now, the reason I really like this clay buildup brush is that it's just, I don't know, there's something about like, it just feels natural. I don't know what it is that's about it, but the reason I really like it is it builds volumes pretty quickly and it takes away volumes pretty quickly too. So there are areas like right here where it's kind of like, it feels like it's pushed in too far. And what this clay buildup brush does is it basically just kind of fills in those areas. So instead of trying to like, you know, noodle it with those other brushes, this one just works really well. You'll also notice I'm upside down because I don't care. I am not worried about that at all. Something that a lot of artists do, especially painters, is they'll, especially in the digital world, is they'll rotate their stuff 180 degrees or mirror it and kind of look to see what it looks like that direction too. And working on stuff upside down is fine. I'm not worried about it. All right, so where's the front of this? This way is the front. Okay, cool. So let's put a little door in here. So hold down the S key, change the size of my brush, and I'm just going to hold Alt, and we'll just carve in here. And we'll put a little portcullis That's what these are called right here. Carve it in. And hold down Shift, just kind of smooth it out a little bit. Now, if you're using a mouse to do this, one of the things you'll do a lot is to come up here and play with the intensity. Because I've got a tablet, I can control that intensity very easily while I'm slowly working on this. Like depending on how hard I stroke or light I stroke, it will totally make a difference in there. Knowing that. All right, so let's get down into the nitty gritty. Now, I'm not going to punch a hole through this. I don't think that I can with this very easily. So I'm going to kind of ignore that problem for the doorway here. So we can kind of pull that there. I do want to build like a little walkway up here though. So carve straight down into this. Do that up here as well. Hold on Alt and just kind of carve right in. Now, something to kind of keep in mind when you're working on this, the smaller the brush, the finer the detail, right? So this number, let me move this down here. So this number right here shows you how many active points you're currently working with. So I've got 150,000 points, which for these programs really isn't that much. It will choke a lot of other ones. Now that will be kind of a problem when we get to Unreal, but we can fix that pretty easily. A couple of ways. We can take it to other programs and fix it. But while we're inside of here, we can hit these low, medium, and high buttons. You notice the high one will reduce it down to 500,000, 300,000, and low is 150,000. So if your machine starts to chug while you're working on this and you're like, oh, what's going on? It might be due to how many points you've got. So with this one as is, I'm going to try something and not save when I do this. It shouldn't be a problem by any means, but I don't trust computers. So it's going to kind of think. You'll get a little bar up here at the top, and then it drops it down to just under or right at 150,000 points. And you'll notice I didn't lose any resolution. Like there's nothing lost here as far as the details that was put into this. The resolution of the details, I should say. You do, however, if I turn on my polyframe, what it's doing is it finds the areas that have the most detail and it puts in little tiny triangles. And where there's less detail, it puts really big triangles. So it kind of maintains what it is that you're working on, which is great. It does rebuild the entire geometry. So if you had UVs, now they're gone, but you can't do UVs in here anyway. So things to kind of think about. All right, let's put a little bit of detail up here on the top. Just some little stripes, something. After you actually do what I had just done up here and hit these low, medium, high buttons, you may find that certain areas, and it'll do it over here, as I carve on this, see if I can find it. Is it going to do it for me? It's not going to do it for me right now. Oh, there it did it. Okay, so it's really subtle. So right here, right where my cursor is, you'll notice it didn't put nearly as much detail in there. And the reason that it's doing that is because when you draw a stroke, it has to rebuild the topology. And if there's no, like on the bottom of this, if there's no topology there, it can't really deal with it. And you can see it kind of like artifacts along these edges. And it's basically just trying to deal with it as it goes across there. So if that happens, that's fine. If you smooth it out and then just go over it another time, it usually fixes the problem. So things to kind of think about. Why isn't it giving me the detail? And be like, because I don't have enough to work with, right? A couple little windows up here too. Smaller brush. Something like this. I can carve in here like that. On this side. Yeah, there we go. That works. And because we can, we're going to put little bricks in here. So I'm just going to, these are my bricks. They're the most beautiful bricks of all time. There we go. So I'm up at 318,000. To make it a little bit easier, I'm going to go ahead and make it a little easier on the rendering when we get over to Unreal. I'm just going to knock this down to 150,000. Cool. There we have now a piece that we can actually send out to 3D print. We can save it out and we can actually send it to other ZBrush Core Mini users and ZBrush users as well, which is pretty cool. You can always send this out to other higher programs, the more expensive ones, but you can't send them back down. So if you're in ZBrush, you can't send something back in down here. where you can actually send this out to that Sculpt or that Sculpt GL program that was online that I was talking about. You can't bring things into ZBrush Core Mini. You have to start here, and that's kind of what you work with, unless you're working with other ZBrush Core Mini files. So what is a ZBrush Core Mini file? Well, it's actually a GIF, believe it or not. So if you go up here, you can say open, you can open other GIFs. And if you say save, so if I save this out, it will ask me, it's like, oh, new sphere. Let's actually just name this one _02 because I've already got a sandcastle in there. And if we save this out as a GIF, right? Check this out. Let's just drop this on the desktop. Let's do the horrible thing. Let's drop it on the desktop.
I can't believe it's a GIF.
It's a GIF.
That's absolutely blowing my mind right now.
There it is. That's it. So what's cool about this is that I can send this to anybody and they can open up this GIF inside of ZBrush Core, ZBrush Core Mini, or ZBrush, and they can actually see this file, which is freaking awesome. So this is really cool. You can actually find a lot of these on the ZBrush websites. Like they're like, oh, here's my GIF. Like people just kind of hand these things out. It's super cool. It's a lot of fun to kind of check out. So
it looks like, just looking at the anatomy of that, it looks like they're using the animated frames to basically digitize the structure. Like so this thumbnail is kind of like a snapshot of it, but that black and white static is actually like a data stream of all of the points being all the frames of the GIF, because if an animated GIF has frames, and so that section is turned into frames that communicates all the data to rebuild the 3D structure. Because how do you build a 3D thing out of a 2D? And it's animation, and it's like a QR code basically, just constantly in every frame. Basically,
can we run it through your clock? Will it read it through your clock?
Yeah, dude, trust me, the clock's right here.
Okay, so let's kind of talk about what that means before we jump over to Unreal, because it's cool for sure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the ZBrush. This is a full-fledged version as of this recording. I'm sure there's more coming. There always are. I'm waiting for it. Let's go back to a vanilla UI. So what we can do is we can come up into File, and we'll say Open. Let's navigate to the desktop. Grab that GIF, say Open. Ta-da, there it is. In all of its glory. All of its glory. Oh,
how big is that GIF file? I'm curious the size of it.
They're not small. We are running, so it's 2 megs.
That's, yeah. Wow.
I mean, it's not huge, but it's not small either.
It's genius.
By all means. So there's that. So that's what's cool about these GIFs. You can send them back and forth. I could open it up in another version. Somebody else could open it up in their version of ZBrush Core Mini. So Brian, if you were to grab this, you could do that, right? All right. So here's what we want to do though. We want to actually send this out to the Unreal Engine. So instead of saying open or save, we're going to hit this button up here for the export. So we'll hit that, and then we'll be able to send out as an OBJ. So let's call this one 2. Let's get rid of the GIF. We'll just save it on the desktop again. Right. Okay. Real quick, actually. So this one, actually, this is ZBrush. We don't need ZBrush. Actually, we might need this one, just depending on how much time we've got left. So ZBrush Core Mini, we don't have UVs on this. And this is the point that I want to make, is that what we're going to do is we're going to add materials to this, and we don't have UVs because we don't necessarily need them. We're going to play with some pretty cool materials inside of Unreal to get it to do what we want to do. Now, I've saved this. This should be good to go. I'm just going to hit this button and close it down. Goodbye. The project is gone forever. Well, I saved the GIF and the OBJ, so we've got those. So back over here in Unreal, we want to bring this in. So let's turn off my filters here, and we'll lift this up a little bit. So I'm just going to right click down here in the content browser, come up to import, and over here, let's grab that castle. And we'll just say open. We'll give it a moment. Now it's going to ask how we want to import this in. A couple things that we want to do. Uniform scale. Let's knock this down to 3. This is coming from ZBrush Core Mini, and I found yesterday that setting this at 3 works really well. And then the import rotation, I do need to set this to 90 because the way it's oriented in ZBrush Core Mini is different than it's going to be oriented here inside of Unreal. So a couple little things to kind of notice there. we have this generate collision on import. It's already checked on, so we're going to get automatic collision. It's going to be really crude, but it'll work for sure, for sure. Down here underneath for materials, I do not want it to create any materials. So these are the couple of things that I want to play with. Collision, the orientation that it's coming in at, and we'll see if I got this right. Fingers crossed. And then I don't need a material. We're going to go ahead and make one, and I don't need any textures either. So we'll turn that all off and then just say import. We'll wait for it. Ooh, we got a couple errors. That's fine. Shouldn't be that big of a deal. And there we go. So here is our castle that just came in. I'm just going to double click on this to open up the static mesh editor. And there it is. That is our castle. It just came over there from ZBrush Core Mini. Now you will notice a couple things if you're used to Unreal is that this is kind of right in the middle of the grid. And that is because the 000 point in ZBrush Core Mini, when it exports out, is in the center of the object. So that's just what it is. I'm not going to fight it. There it is. Let's put a material on this. Oh, actually, let's look at the geometry because it's very dense. Ta-da! That's what that actually looks like. So that's a little bit crazy. You will notice up here in the top left, it does say triangles. Zoom in on this. For triangles, it's, you know, exactly what we said it was inside of ZBrush Core Mini. So look at those vertices, 500,000 vertices. What? That's okay. Unreal can handle a couple of objects that are really, really big a lot easier than it can handle a bunch of really low poly objects that have the same vertex count. So it's best to combine it into one big piece as of right now. I'm sure that will change in the next couple of months because Unreal 5. All right, so here's this. So let's go ahead and drag this into our world. Let's go ahead and get rid of the original one. And we'll drag this one in here. Yay, and I did get it the right size, and it's right side up, so perfect. And we'll just rotate this so we can see the front. There we are. Here's this. Let's take a look at the collision on this real quick, just so we know what we're getting into or what we can't get into. So underneath lit, I'm just going to come down here into player collision. And you will notice that it's a big box. So we can't get into it, and that's fine. I'm not going to worry about it. I can't get anywhere near that. But we need to put a material on here. So if we take the material that we had created for our landscape, right? So we have our landscape materials down here. Whoops. Well, Unreal, what are you doing for me? All right. Right. So landscape procedural material. So this one right here. So if I just drag this onto here, you will notice we'll get the same kind of effect where we have the green on the top, and then we have this kind of brown on the side. But you'll notice that the texture is actually missing. All we're getting are the kind of the values and the hues. We're not actually getting the texture, which is not exactly what we want. We want to actually have texture on there. So there are a couple of different ways that we can make this happen. So we're going to get into the materials at this point. So the first one that I want to talk about is this one down here. So this is called world position. And this is a total trip of a material. I'm going to go ahead and put it on here and be like, what is going on? Like everything's stretched vertically, like, ugh, that's gross, right? But what's really handy about this is wherever I put this, this is going to be a trip. Watch this. Let's just kind of go full screen so y'all can see this. As I move this, look what it's doing. The texture is not moving, but the object is. So what this material is doing is it's projecting straight down in the world. And no matter what has this material on it, it will always like link up and like match. So by that, I mean this. Let's go and grab a cube. Zoom into the cube. Let's take that material, drop it on there, right? And if I have just a little bit larger, which is kind of cool too, right? So we'll take this, and if I hold down Alt and click and drag, I get a second one. And no matter where it's at, it will always match. So right here at the edge, you can't see where it's going to actually meet. So this is amazing for modular assets. For those of you that are watching from my classes, this is super cool, right? And if I rotate this, because it's always, you know, coming down Z, if I move this over, check this out, right where they meet, those little rocks meet right up. So now you never have to put UVs on things. No, I lied. You still got to do UVs, but this is a way to kind of get around that issue. Now you'll notice that the side of this is totally stretched. And if you've been in my classes, you know that I will hit you for this. It is grade dependent, right? Because you don't want that. Like, that's not good, right? So this kind of material does have its limitations. So let's open this up and take a look at what's actually happening in here. So let's give ourselves a little bit more real estate. So from left to right, here is the first node that we have in here. So this is called the absolute world position. Now, if you go searching for this, so if I type ABS, you get this ABS, and you're like, well, what's going on here? So what you need to do is type in world position, POSITION, and you're like, well, it's still not showing up, right? Well, for whatever reason, the filter doesn't filter it out as of this recording, and it's up here at the very top. You'll also notice that I've looked for it up here in the palette, up here in the top right, and it does have that up there as well. Okay, so this will give you this node, or absolute world position. Now, what world position is doing is it's giving us X, Y, and Z. Now, we don't want X, Y, and Z. We want it just to run down, the Z axis, straight down in the world, right? We just want it to run straight down in this case. So, easier to do it that way. There we go. Let's push this over. So what we're doing is we're putting a component mask. So if you type in component, you can find your component mask. And by default, it gives us R and G, which is X and Y. So it's filtering those out. And then Z is our B. So it's taking those and getting rid of them. And then here, I'm actually just multiplying it by a very small number because we're pumping it into the UVs, because we don't want world numbers for when we do UVs. We want to make them much, much smaller. So this is a constant 2 vector. So right click, constant, and we want this constant 2 vector. So this just gives us, in our case, U and V, because we're using coordinates as far as the textures. Okay, so we've got that. We're running it through a multiply, and then we're just adding it to a texture. And you notice, since I've got all of this hooked up, if I move this around on screen, that texture doesn't move in the world. So it's doing the same thing here that it's doing in the world, which is kind of cool. You get a preview of that. And then at the very end, I'm just taking a 0.9 single constant. So right click, constant right there. And I'm just taking that, setting it at 0.9 in my value. And then I'm just typing that in the roughness. So it's not super, super, super shiny. That's all that's going on. So this way, you don't have to have UVs for things like, floors or ceilings. You can, of course, set this so that it does walls, whether they're right, left. So there's those. So yeah, that's how this one works. This is a way that you can actually set this up. That's cool. Okay. Let's kind of talk about some of the other ones that I've built in here too. So we also have this one. So this is a world coordinate. So I'm just going to drag this one on here. And this one works a little bit better. So check it out. If you look at this, you can actually see there's some texture actually happening on here, right? Kind of zoom in here. Like, hey, there's some actual texture, and it's kind of blending up the side a little bit. Like, well, this is kind of cool. So this is similar to what we were playing with on those landscape ones, in that it kind of knows the direction at which the actual geometry is facing. Now, it's not world aligned. It's just kind of aligned. And the reason I say it's not really world aligned is because you'll notice the bottom of these is also giving that same color or that same texture. So again, it's kind of doing the same thing where we're projecting straight down, but this one also, if we back up, whoops, wrong buttons, you will notice that the sides of these, and this is not the greatest texture to see it, right there, but there is actual texture on here. It's not just a straight color, and that's because I've got that sand texture that we're using on the landscape in the background. So that same one that's way over here. That same texture is this same texture here. Okay, so let's take a look at these, because this stuff is pretty cool too. So if I open this one up, you have a different setup. Now, to make this a little easier to see, I do have an extra one here. And there is something that's very important for those of you that are taking notes. This is a texture object. Okay, this is very different from what we were doing with this one, where this is a texture sample. Okay, so texture object, you can right click, texture object. There it is, so texture object. And this will take 2D textures just like everything else. It's pretty much the same exact thing, but it's just used a little bit different. And we've got this world coordinate 3-way is what's going on here. So let's take a look at this really quick. I'm going to disconnect these. This will make this a little bit easier to see on our sphere here. So this one has the cobblestone texture in it. Just the cobblestone pebble diffuse. So if I connect this to the XY texture, what this is doing the way I like to think about it. I don't know why it says XY, because for me, that's a Z because it's straight up and down. So it's excluding the XY. I'm sure the documentation says something different, although I've yet to find it. So if you find it, let me know. Throw a link in the description, please. I'm like, where is this, right? So what it's doing is I feel like it's taking out the Z direction. So that we're only getting above and below. So what we're getting, let's go ahead and save that real quick. Go back and look at our sandcastle here. You'll notice that we get above and below. So there it is, the below part and above. So it's just projecting it straight down through our actual object. And then this one, yeah. So what I'm doing here is then I'm taking this grass and I'm like, oh, I want it to be on the top and the bottoms of things. So that works there, right? And then I can take this and I can put it in the other two. So that way it's projecting from the left and the right and the front and the back all the way around the object. So if we say apply, come back over here, wait for it. Ta-da, there we go. So now you can see it's projecting every direction here. And it's also doing that weird thing where it's projecting in the world. So if I move this, you will notice that it will also attach to it in a way that will make it seamless. There's a little bit of seam there, but it blends it pretty well, which is kind of cool. This thing is always such a trip to move around with this material on here.
Yeah, whoa.
Seizure warning, sorry. Right? And if you rotate it, it does the same kind of thing. So if you wanted to animate like a fun house, and there you go. That's how you do it. Good times. All right, so let's open this one back up. So essentially what I had done is taken my sandstone, because I want it to be sand on the sides, front side, back side, left side, right side, and then grass along the top. So this world coordinate three-way, just right click, world CORD, coordinate three-way. You can get it right here. And you can attach that in there. And of course, at the end, I just take a roughness and I just cranked it up to 0.8 and attach it in there. And that works well for that. So that's how this one works. Again, I don't have UVs on any of this stuff. This is all being projected in the world. Like this is the coolest stuff ever. Saves so much time. Okay, so we've got one other one that's in here too. So it is the world aligned. So let's grab the world aligned and drop it in there. And you're like, oh, well, that just kind of does everything, right? And you can kind of see that it's tiling in here. This one does the same thing where it's up, down, left, right. Okay, this one is kind of fun. So let's open up this one and take a look at this. Let's take the sand off of there. We'll add this one in here. Bloop, and drop it on there. Let's get that guy out of the way. So this world align texture, it does the same thing. So up, down, left, right, but it does it with one texture as opposed to breaking it up into 3 different directions. So if you want to simplify things just to make your life a little bit easier, you can do this. And then you'll notice I've got it in the X, Y, and Z running across here. So world aligned. We've got world aligned blend, normal, and what we're looking for, this is the world aligned texture. So let's come down here. There, world aligned texture. It's down here a little bit lower. So there's that one. Okay. And then this one, and I didn't even put a roughness on this one. I got lazy. That was my bad. So this is how you can get this to kind of line up on there as well. So you can do every direction on here really easy. Now, if we want to actually change, let's look at this. Whoops, let's update that. Don't need that one anymore. Yes, we'll save that. That's awesome. Wait for it. Sandcastle, don't need you. World aligned, don't need you. There we go, world aligned, there we go. So if we want to change how often this is actually repeating across the surface, and let's apply this. Wait for it. Because this may be too small or too big for what it is that we're actually working with, we can do that. And that is this texture size right here. So this second one will do this for us. So we can just right click. And what I'm looking for is just a single constant. Because we can just, oh, it's actually a vector 3. So I do need X, Y, and Z on this one because I don't think that's going to, oh, it will let me do it. Look at that. Let's see if we can break it. So I set it to 0, so we're not getting any tiling at all. So if we hover over this, it may give us, oh, I need to bring back my help. Default. Okay, so you can see the default value is 64 by 64 by 64, which is cool. So if let's clear that out of there. Let's give this a value of 64. Should get the same effect that we had before. Cool. So there it is. So if we set this to, I don't know, let's say 20, something lower. Yeah, and it's repeating, right? So if we set this to something like 100, we're getting even bigger rocks. So we can save that back to here, and then we get bigger rocks on our sandcastle.
Rock castle.
Rock castle. It's a rock.
Or just castle.
Castle. There you go.
You know,
as is. Okay.
I'm thinking about like how cool this is, like this workflow for like a student that's trying to use Unreal to create a scenario, maybe to tell a story or to demonstrate a subject that they learned about or to present some concept that they're trying to convey.
Absolutely.
And they want to kind of make it their own, how they could use this free 3D software to like amazingly quickly create something interesting, bring it in here, give it a texture, put it in as a prop into their storytelling that they're doing. Like I could really see how this would really light up a lot of
it's a lot less
imaginations.
A lot less work for and imaginations. And
the students would go to town on it. Like the ones that it really clicks with, you would have the moment would change their life. And you know it because the way they would just like create this immense, amazing, detailed world with all these things.
I think one of the awesome things to kind of point out about this as well is that like we're working inside of Unreal, and Unreal is a huge program. But if you were to go and play with a program that's called Twinmotion, everything that we've just kind of touched here on this world aligned texture thing, it's built into that program. Like it's already ready to go. So as you're building up architectural pieces, whether it's inside of Blender or Zbrush or whatever program you end up using, you can drop it into Twinmotion and then just slap materials onto things, and it just works. Like it's phenomenal how fast it is. As soon as, and the learning curve on it's actually really low. Like there's really not too much to go into it. Like Unreal is this massive, huge thing, and they stripped out like 99% of it and dropped it into Twinmotion. And you're like, cool, here, just build a little world, slap a material on it. It's so awesome. It's so incredibly awesome. Maybe we'll do one of those. Maybe we'll do
a that sounds really cool. Like if you could
because there's some fun stuff that
I almost think like what you were doing in ZBrush, the core mini there, like you create some sort of fairy tale or imaginary land, right, or setting, or maybe like create a public art sculpture inside of in a park or something like that.
Yeah, we could. It usually takes around an hour or so, but let's actually kind of tangent real quick. So if we were to go, see if I can find one of these old pieces, because I've got oodles of them. This one will work. Oh, actually, let's do dancers. Which ones were the dancers? Let's find out. Oh, it's these two. Okay, cool. There's those ones. So if you had a public art piece like this that you had built in ZBrush or whatever it happens to be, and you don't want to put UVs on it, you can instantly grab this, take it over there, and be like, oh, let's put metal, like a metal material on it, and it just happens. Like it's so incredibly quick. I think this was the other one. Yeah. So this one was a piece that I had created a year or two or so ago, and then took this one actually into what was the program we were just talking about?
Twinmotion.
Thank you. Yeah. So inside of Twinmotion, and then ended up using this as a piece, and then very quickly just kind of created an environment. And Twinmotion is pretty powerful as far as how many points and vertices it can use. I don't know that it would handle 1 million. Would be pretty decent. It wouldn't be the most awful thing ever, but you can definitely take advantage of that. Just be like, let's just make a thing, and it's so fast to just kind of ideate. And one of the things that's great about Twinmotion is that it really is built for those ones. It's really built for architecture. So it's the idea of video games and architecture coming together, and just the architecture abilities inside that program for ideation are just absolutely astounding. you can just make things, and it's just so incredibly fast. And then you can actually export it out as an exe, and you can walk around it in VR.
Wow. Yeah.
Like, oh, this is the building that I want to make. And your client's like, really? Well, what does it look like? Like, here, ta-da, like put these on and have a look-see.
The only difference between what you're seeing and what it could be is a little bit of money.
Right? Like it's a thing. So
wow, that's super cool. And nice artwork, by the way.
Thank you. I do more than just sandcastles.
I was thinking you could retire with your sandcastle business, but now
depends on how abstract I want to go.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's everything in a nutshell.
Wow.
Were there any questions? There weren't too many. There weren't too many people there.
No.
Thank you, everybody that watches these like afterwards too. I very much appreciate that. It's always kind of fun to show off what these programs can do for you, not just what I can do in them, because that's, whatever. I want to see what all y'all can create, because it's just the tip of the iceberg. So I'm kind of thinking next time we'll jump in and maybe we'll do some twin motion stuff. We'll create a quick sculpture here and then a couple of primitives and drop it into an actual scene inside of twin motion. That could be kind of fun.
That sounds like a really cool idea. Definitely. Like
it could very easily be a 3-parter, but we'll see if we can do it in 1 or 2.
Right. Yeah, I just love that workflow of being giving a student a tool for this amazing creation, bringing it into something so that it now is suddenly real. Like, so the payoff, the payoff when you go into the 3D program is you start with a sphere, and then you use that snake hook brush, or and then it's like, boom, instant payoff. Like, holy crap, that's amazing, right? And so you get that payoff, and then you take your thing and you put it into a program that makes it look real. Like, boom, another payoff, and then you put a texture on it. That's like, then you could slap all kinds of textures. So I think that process has these awesome payoffs along the way that would really engage a lot of students, and I think be transformational based on what I've seen, in teaching kids, being the first person to teach kids different technologies and stuff. When it's their thing, man, it, and they're gone, and that's great. So, and I say kids,
maybe we'll put some cactus in here too. Why not? It's a cactus brush. Why would you even have a cactus brush? That's ridiculous. Put them on the roof.
So wild. Yeah, wow.
So fast.
So fast. I mean, that's the great part about trying to make this accessible for teachers to be able to get. What I love is giving students a voice, a platform that it becomes a method of communication. So a poster board is a method of communication, a mobile, a mural, or a shadow box. That's the old methods of communication and visualization of your ideas and learning and stories and stuff like that. But now we're giving them new tools like Fortnite Creative, and you have Minecraft, you have all of this stuff. It's amazing. It's just another tool.
Yeah, and yeah. You hit it. I don't need to iterate further on that one. It's just a lot of fun to kind of play with. Let's put some bricks in there, right? Just bricks.
You could probably do a 24-hour stream on this stuff. Just
you don't even know. My poor students are just like, dude, shut up. I want to play.
Yeah. But wait, there's one more. There's one more. Hold on a second.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's plan for this. For those of you that are still here, here's my plan. Let me know if you like it or you don't like it. So next time we'll jump into ZBrush proper. We'll make kind of a solar system type mobile thing, because we don't have to worry about gravity inside of twin motion, which is really nice. So we'll fake it. So we've got these floating solar system pieces. We'll create something, some planets and some moons. And from there, because I love astronomy, why not? We just made it to Mars. Come on now. And from there, we'll go ahead and make, maybe we'll go into Maya. Maybe we'll play a little bit in Maya and build just kind of a quick little environment. And we'll take all those pieces and we'll drop them into Twinmotion. I got a feeling it's going to be at least a 2-parter just because of setup and time and explaining and everything that goes on in there. But it's awesome to be able to see how quickly, within 2 to 3 hours, you can actually come up with something once you're kind of used to the actual program. So if that's something fun to y'all, let me know. I would love to kind of see where we all go with it. And thank you for making it this far in the stream. I appreciate that. Otherwise, if there's something else that you want to see done inside of ZBrush, let me know. I would gladly play in this program for days and days. Look at this. See, you can make things like this. Ta-da. This pops up when you do, if you just let it sit long enough. So,
oh, that's fun.
Like you want to make chains, we can make chains. It's totally fun, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Nice.
Love it, love it, love it.
Cool, dude. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm here to do make awesome things and show people how to make awesome things. So
yeah. Awesome. Well, it looks like the stream might be bouncing in and out on some platforms here. I don't know if that's what that's about. Getting some warnings from Twitch and stuff, but I think yeah. So Twinmotions and bringing some 3D objects in.
Yeah, sounds good.
Is on the roster for next. All right. Cool, dude. Thanks, and thank you all for joining. Don't forget, you could drop your comments in wherever you're watching. I think YouTube is kind of like going to be our main place for storing the videos on demand, so you can put your comments in there. We'll check them out, and then give us suggestions, feedback. Let us know.
Cool.
All right, buddy.
Adios.
Thanks, Gatlin. See you guys.